Madrid sold out in hours. London is holding its breath. The Riyadh Air Metropolitano will open its doors on April 29th, and two footballing philosophies, built over two very different decades, will finally collide. This is the Champions League semi-final nobody wanted to miss. And across England and Spain, fans have already started choosing sides. The draw was confirmed in mid-April. Arsenal, fresh off a goalless second leg against Sporting that sealed a 1-0 aggregate. Atletico Madrid, coming in from a much louder quarterfinal, the one that ended Barcelona's Champions League hopes and left Diego Simeone, not a man known for showing emotion, visibly moved. For Arsenal, this is history. The Gunners have reached back-to-back Champions League semi-final for the first time in the club's entire existence. Their last final? 2006, a generation ago. For Atletico, this is a ghost they've been chasing. Two recent finals, 2014, 2016, both ended the same way. Runner-up. A Champions League trophy has never lived in Madrid's red and white half. And Simeone is still there, more than 14 years into a tenure that almost no other top-flight manager can match. These two teams already met this season, back in October, at the Emirates. Arsenal ran out 4-0 winners, with all four goals arriving inside a 13-minute stretch in the second half. But that was league phase. This is knockout. And, as ESPN put it, the best defense in the world is about to meet what might be the best defensive team of the last decade. Let's start in North London. And let's be honest, Arsenal fans are split. Not on whether they want the win. Of course they do. They're split on whether this team is actually ready for it. On paper, the case for Arsenal is overwhelming. They topped the Champions League phase with 8 wins from 8, the first club ever to finish a Champions League phase with a perfect record. Across all 12 Champions League matches this season, they remain unbeaten, with a goal difference of 27-5. In every competition combined, they've conceded just 38 goals in 54 matches. And in the Premier League, they lead by 6 points going into the final stretch. That is the resume of a team that, in another era, would be walking into a semi-final as heavy favorites. But then there's the attack, and that's where the mood on the ground tightens. Arsenal's misfiring forward line has been a constant talking point. So much so that after sealing the semi-final against Sporting, Mikel Arteta turned to the supporters and, almost pleading, asked them to, quote, enjoy where we are. Don't criticize. That is not a line a manager delivers from a position of ease. That is a line delivered because the gap between the team's trophy-contending record and the fan base's anxious mood has become impossible to ignore. Over at Arsblog, one of the oldest Arsenal fan communities on the internet, the framing this week was simple. We have a big game on Wednesday, not just Sunday. Translation: don't let Premier League obsession pull your attention away from the Champions League. The supporters who have watched Arsenal for 20 years know exactly what this tie is. It's a chance to erase a long, painful European history and write a new one. And then there's the injury watch. Bukayo Saka, nursing an Achilles. Martin Odegaard, a knee issue. Both missed Arsenal's quarterfinal second leg. Both are question marks going into Madrid. Ben White, Jurrien Timber, the defensive rotation is tighter than Arteta would like. The final word on availability will come in the pre-match media briefings, but supporters are holding their breath on every team sheet. The English mood, in short, is two things at once. Quiet pride in a historic achievement. Loud nerves about the 90-minute stretch that's about to decide whether those history books stay closed or get written all over again. Now switch the camera to Madrid, because the vibe at the Metropolitano is nothing like North London's nerves. It's a different kind of intensity altogether, the kind that only 15 years of Cholo Simeone can build. When tickets for the first leg went on sale, the Metropolitano sold out within hours. Over 70,000 seats gone, almost as fast as the system could process them. This just days after Atletico lost the Copa del Rey final to Real Sociedad, a sporting gut punch that would have sent most fan bases into a spiral. Instead, the response from Madrid was immediate. A packed, roaring stadium, booked and paid for, before the dust had even settled on the Copa loss. That tells you everything about what this semifinal means in Spain. Diego Simeone, the man who has defined this club's identity since 2011, was emotional after the win over Barcelona. Visibly, publicly emotional, which, if you've watched Simeone for more than a decade, is not something you see often. He told reporters, quote, "Seeing the team compete still makes me emotional." And then, in the same press conference, typical Simeone, flipping from feeling to fire, he laid out the Atletico approach for what comes next. Quote, "We attack better than we defend. So we have to attack. There's no other way." That is a fascinating line. For years, Atletico Madrid have been the European template for defensive organization. A 4-4-2 block that asked every opponent, "Can you break us?" And more often than not, the answer was no. But this Atletico, Simeone's 2025-26 version, is different. They attack differently. They press forward. They trust Julian Alvarez and Antoine Griezmann to carry moments that, in older Atletico sides, would have been stubborn, grinding goalless draws. Back in March, Alvarez spoke publicly about Griezmann, calling him, quote, "a genius and a role model." That chemistry, that trust between their two best attackers, is what Atletico fans are pinning this entire European run on. It's not about a single goal. It's about an idea that after two heartbreaking finals, 2014 and 2016, both lost, there is still one last chance to end the wait. And if there's one place in world football where a home crowd can force that ending, Spanish supporters will tell you it's the Metropolitano. On a Champions League semifinal night, with the Copa wounds still fresh, with Simeone on the touchline, the volume alone is expected to be suffocating. Arsenal supporters know. They've been there before, but they've never been there like this. Now, the managers, because this tie is at its core a chess match. Mikel Arteta, 44 years old, over 6 years into his Arsenal project. A coach whose public communication is almost always composed, controlled, disciplined. The Enjoy Where We're Aligned this week was a rare moment of him speaking past the team and directly to the fan base. Arteta's Arsenal is built on structure, positional play, set-piece mastery, and defensive security that has been the single most reliable feature of their entire season. Diego Simeone, 55 years old, in charge of Atletico for more than 14 years and counting. A rarity in modern football. A coach whose sides are defined by defensive pressure, quick transitions, and set-piece danger, both on the way in and on the way out. The tactical contrast between these two coaches is not cosmetic. It's philosophical. And if you're looking for the pundit verdict, ESPN's Bill Connolly called Arsenal, quote, "the most consistently excellent team in Europe all season." His prediction, Arsenal 2, Atletico 1. Narrow. Nothing about this tie is unanimous. So what actually decides this tie? Start with set pieces. Arsenal have spent 2 seasons being called Europe's set-piece masters. Corners, free kicks, near-post routines, it's a factory. Atletico, according to analytics writers at ESPN, have been outliers this season in both corner strategy and corner effectiveness, meaning they could turn their 4th Champions League semifinal under Simeone into their 3rd final, in part through set-piece work. That specific phase of the game, on both ends, could swing 90 minutes. Then the midfield. If Odegaard is missing, Arsenal lose their best creative connector. If Saka is missing, they lose their best one-on-one wide threat. Atletico's midfield under Simeone has never been about flair. It's about breaking the opposition's rhythm and turning loose balls into shots. That kind of midfield suddenly becomes very, very dangerous if Arsenal walk in shorthanded. Then the crowd. This is where the narrative tilts hardest. The Metropolitano, on a Champions League semifinal night, with a home crowd that just paid for their tickets inside of a few hours. That's a factor that doesn't fit into any tactical preview, but every player who has walked onto that pitch in the last decade will tell you it's real. Simeone's public posture has been defiant. Full belief in reaching the final, full trust in the Metropolitano crowd, full backing of his players. Arteta's tone, by contrast, has been measured. Enjoy it. Stay focused. No wild promises. 2 very different pre-match postures. One built on emotional defiance. The other on quiet discipline. Which one ends up lifting the trophy in Budapest on May 30th? That will be answered in 210 minutes of football between April 29th and May 5th. But the argument between these two fan bases? That's already started. loudly. So, Arsenal or Atletico, Metropolitano Fortress, or North London defensive machine? Drop your prediction in the comments. We'll be back right after the first leg on April 29th with the fan reactions from both ends. If you want to see how England and Spain react in real time, hit subscribe. This is SpoReact. See you at the Metropolitano.